Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and I saw the Garfield movie and I didn't like it. Now I was actually really looking forward to this movie. I'm a big fan of Garfield. I loved reading the comics in middle school. I loved watching Garfield and Friends on Cartoon Network and Netflix when it was on there for the time being. And this movie actually looked really promising. I liked the trailers. I thought it looked really funny. And the talent behind this, some of the people who worked on Emperor's New Groove were behind this. It seemed like a lot was going to work for this movie for me. But unfortunately, I was very disappointed by this film. This did not live up to my expectations. I just didn't like it, unfortunately. Starting with my positives for this film, I really like the animation here. I think they really were able to bring the simplistic designs of Jim Davis to the 3D world very well. The textures are all great. The designs are really cartoonish, but they don't look too cartoonish, if that makes any sense. The movements are all great. It's quick, it's fast paced, and I also really love the way that they designed the eyes. I don't know why, but that's the one thing that really sticks out with me with the animation. It's not like the action or the movement, it's the design of the eyes. But I don't know, something about the way the eyes look in this movie really encapsulated me, I guess is the right word to say. But yeah, the animation still looks really solid, especially during some of the big action set pieces where it has a lot of energy, a lot of fast moving, and a lot of the cartoonish over-the-top movements of the characters really benefits for the quick, fast-paced action sequences, especially the final chase on a train. That was a ton of fun to watch. I will say the movie starts off very promising. The first 10 minutes where it's just an introduction to Garfield, showing you basically the typical Garfieldisms. He hates Mondays, how he met John, and how much he loves lasagna. I thought it really did a great job of bringing Garfield and introducing him to the modern day and age very well, and a lot of the jokes in this part of the movie were actually really funny. I was laughing a lot during this chunk of the movie, but that's not to say the rest of the jokes don't work. There were still a couple of jokes here and there that did get a good laugh out of me, whether it be the over-the-top Looney Tunes slapstick or even some of the adult jokes here and there. Some of the jokes here were really funny. I also really liked the father-son dynamic and aspect of this film, as that was the portion I was really invested, learning about Garfield's troubled past with his father and reconnecting with him. I thought that led to some of the funniest and even some of the most heartfelt, sweetest moments of the film. There are times where the movie really slows down and takes its time, and it really just lets you soak in the emotional beats, and I thought that really worked well, and I wish the movie focused more on that aspect instead of what the movie is really about, which we'll get to later. But when the movie focuses on this father-son dynamic, I thought the film really shined here. But unfortunately, those are the few positives I have with this movie, as like I said, this movie did let me down. While I did enjoy the father-son dynamic a lot, and I thought that was going to be the majority of the movie, that's not what happened at all. Folks, this is a heist movie where they have to break into like a dairy farm and break out a ton of milk for an old nemesis of Garfield's dad. And unfortunately, this was the stuff I just didn't care for, really. It just felt too, sequel. Like, this definitely felt like the sequel to an animated movie as opposed to the introduction. I'm not opposed to Garfield going on wacky hijinks, as there have been plenty of times where Garfield has been on outlandish adventures, like fighting pirates, fighting cougars, dealing with aliens, etc. But I just felt like this was a movie that wasn't outlandish enough for Garfield. Like, he really didn't need to be in this movie. He's just along for the ride. Again, if it focused more on the father-son dynamic more than the heist, I think the film would greatly benefit it like that. But that's just the thing. The heist is the majority of the film, and because of that, most of the newer characters get more of the spotlight than the typical Garfield characters you were expecting. Garfield and Odie are pretty much the main characters in that lineup. John is stuck at his house. Liz gets one line, and Nermal gets a quick cameo. And it's mostly focused on these newer characters who I just don't find to be all that interesting. You got the villain, who I don't even remember her name, her two lackeys who were just there making some bad jokes. You got the Ving Rhames bull, who was in it a lot more than I expected. It becomes his own movie at a certain point, and as the movie was going on, I was like, okay, so why is Garfield here? What was his purpose in all of this? He's just there for the ride, I guess. This movie also has a lot of pacing issues, which is surprising considering that there's so much going on for such a simple character. This movie is only an hour and 40 minutes, but it felt like 2 hours and 40 minutes. There were long stretches and gaps where they just really felt the need to draw out certain moments, and I just started to really feel the runtime, and I'm like, oh my God, we're only like 70 minutes into this movie. How much more movie is there left in this? So I really think they needed to tighten up the pacing a bit, definitely shorten and cut out a couple moments in here. Another issue is that this movie is also just not very funny. Unfortunately, there were a couple of gags in the beginning and scattered throughout here that did make me laugh, but a lot of it just fell flat on its face. A lot of it was just cheap, typical slapstick you'd expect from a cartoon, or just some weird pop culture references here. For some reason, there's a lot of Tom Cruise jokes and references here. That was very strange, and not even Garfield's snarky remarks could really save the jokes here. Unfortunately, I just did not find a lot of the jokes and humor in this movie to be that very funny, unfortunately, which is surprising because, again, some people who worked on Emperor's New Groove worked on this movie, and that movie's hilarious, but unfortunately just the comedy and wit from that movie weren't in here, unfortunately. And I guess at this point I should talk about the Chris Pratt of it all. Chris Pratt as Garfield. I didn't personally mind him that much. I think he definitely fits Garfield better than he does Mario, but I still felt like his performance was lacking that Garfieldism, that lower register, that deeper voice. If anything, I would have preferred, Jason Sudeikis or Nick Offerman to play the character. I get why for this movie he's very hyperactive. He's doing stunts and, aerodynamics using drones, which is surprising considering how fat of a cat he is. But I think he did a good enough job for the type of Garfield character this movie is portraying, but I understand why people aren't as enthusiastic. At times he did remind me more of Andy from Parks and Rec than Garfield. But overall, I still didn't really like the Garfield movie. Outside of a strong first 10 minutes, a couple of good jokes here and there, and solid animation, and even a sweet, heartfelt father-son story, it just wasn't enough to help this movie. The story is focused on the wrong aspects, a lot of the comedy falls flat for me. And overall, I was just very disappointed by this movie. I was hoping this would be a bit better than what we inevitably got. I really can't recommend going to check this out at the theater. In my opinion, you should probably go watch if you want a much better, more higher quality family film. I definitely say go check that out in the theaters, and you could probably wait for this to drop on video on demand, DVD, and streaming. I don't really recommend checking out the Garfield movie, unfortunately. And those were my thoughts on the Garfield movie. What did you all think of it? If you've seen it, did you like it? Did you hate it? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links at the end of the video. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.